Okay, let's get back to the animals. Let's talk about intentionality. So, intentionality in philosophy is essentially the same root as the word intention, right? Intended. It's being about something. Um, and when we apply it to minds, we think of it as the state of being about objects, about something, right? So when a person falls down the stairs, you think physics pulled them down. But if they throw themselves down the stairs, you try to interpret what was going on in their mind. What did they intend to happen, right? So you think of other humans when they are behaving in ways that seem out of their own volition to have intentionality. That means that you think that they have beliefs, desires, plans, understandings. We call those intentional states. There's a well-known rule in biology and especially in comparative psychology called Morgan's Canon, which is essentially that you shouldn't presume that animals have more thought than they do, or than the absolute minimum. So Morgan's Canon, formally speaking, could be something like, accept the lowest level of intentional explanation that works. The idea being that you don't have to think that your dog likes you or that your dog is sad when they did something wrong. It could just be that they've become accustomed to realizing that if they make that face, you will be nicer to them or you'll give them a treat. Your dog doesn't love you, according to Morgan's Canon. um, so with Morgan's Canon, the idea is you've got a range of explanations. You choose the one that doesn't require you to assume a lot of things. Now, people have found Morgan's Canon to be both intuitive and unintuitive, and it tends to depend on whether you think of animals as being fundamentally continuous with humans or as humans being fundamentally unique, which is why I started this lecture with a discussion of human uniqueness. So Alfred Russel Wallace, one of the people that is sometimes credited with coming up with the idea of natural selection, um, who co-presented a paper with Darwin in 1958 and who had some ideas about how evolution worked for everything but humans, thought that natural selection applied to non-humans, and he was pretty racist about this, despite the fact that he spent a lot of his time outside of Europe. He thought that we shouldn't use the same kinds of explanations for non-human animals that we do for humans. On the other hand, Charles Darwin and people that followed in his line thought of animals as just another specification of similar properties of minds. So you might think of Morgan's Canon as being in Alfred Russel Wallace's lineage, thinking that applying human thoughts and human functions and capabilities to animals is a form of anthropomorphism, that is, pretending that they're more human than they are. Morgan's Canon. So in no case is an animal activity to be interpreted as higher psychological functions. On the other hand, if you're following in Darwin's footsteps, you might think that Morgan's Canon is just as much a oversimplification as denying it, right? So you might think, well, if an animal has independent signs of intelligence, or if there's no reason to believe that the the brain structures have fundamentally changed between when they evolved and when humans evolved, then it makes sense to think that they might have some mental faculties which are approximately similar to what humans have. So we've talked about Morgan's canon as accepting the lowest level of intentionality possible. What we mean by that is something like this. Zero order intentionality is animals that are just behaving the way physics or reactions or reflexes tell them to. When a person falls down the stairs because they tripped, you don't think they intended to fall down the stairs. It is zero order intentionality. On the other hand, you might think that there are animals that do intend things, that do act in ways that show that they have desires and beliefs about the world. That would be called first order intentionality. And then second and n order intentionality, n being like third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, is essentially animals having thoughts about other creatures' thoughts. So when you think, I am hungry, that is a first order intentionality. When I think, oh, you are hungry, that's second order. When you think, Carlos thinks that I'm hungry, that's third order, and so on and so forth. So if Max plans on arriving at school in time, first order. If he believes the children know he's coming, second order. If he wants people to believe that he is coming, that's third order. If he wants them to believe that he expects them to be waiting, there we go. That's third order. So it's easy to measure this in humans, and it's easy to talk about. It gets kind of tricky when you use the same word, like I think that you think that I think that you think. But if you say something like, I believe that you think that I understand that you assess, it gets a little easier to follow. How do you measure it with animals? And we tend to think that flexibility of behavior is a metric of intentionality. If an animal is frustrated in one attempt and they try something else, it must mean that they had a goal of whatever they were trying to attempt. Like if they are reaching for food and there's something in the way and then they go around it, that means that they wanted that food, that it wasn't just an accident that they were reaching in that direction. So there's a broken wing display in plover birds where they look like their wings are broken, and you see them behaving as if they have a broken wing. And they tend to do this whenever their nests are threatened. So you might interpret this in two different ways. One is first order intentionality. Actually, one would be zeroth order intentionality. They think they have a broken wing, or their body's just reacting in ways that they can't understand. First order would be that they plan to lead the foxes away from the nest. Second order is they understand that the fox wants the easy prey that is the eggs in their nest, but they want the fox to think that that these birds are easier prey. And so when the fox gets closer, they fly away because their goal has been achieved. I think a lot of students, when they see the videos of the plover birds' broken wing displays, they immediately jump to the second order. Morgan's canon would suggest you should stay to the first order intentional belief. Whether or not you think that's plausible is something that we will discuss in class. So one bit of evidence that it might be second order is the flexibility of this behavior. They tend to do this away from nests. So they tend to place themselves, no matter where you move the nest, they tend to place themselves in ways that would draw the prey, or the predator away from the nest, which seems to imply that they know that there's other creatures that have intentions. They also go farther away when there's dangerous intruders versus non-dangerous intruders. And then they start to monitor what happens when the intruder sees it. If it's not playing along, they'll intensify their display, they'll approach, they'll do a number of things to try to get the attention. So a lot of people think that this is evidence that plover birds have at least second order intentionality. They have a theory of the minds of the predators that are going after their eggs. All right, air conditioning started again, so I'm going to stop again.